when they are embarking on this journey. And I think it's safe enough to say that in the audience today, there is a wide spectrum of companies, some of which who are just toying and flirting with the idea of should we do this, not do this. Some of them who've embarked on it, and some of them who have far more experience. And so I think this is also something that this particular question I'd like to open to the audience also, because you're the ones who are really facing the challenges on a daily basis. You're the ones who are seeing, where is the mismatch between the intention, the policy, and the execution, right? So maybe before I get the two of you to take on that, if we can have a few people from the audience share what has been their experience. Because really, the panel is here to kind of help you move along in the journey, so it doesn't make sense just for them to keep talking. So does anyone want to take that? What has been your challenge? Yes, please. Can we have a mic?
Okay, I have a question in the meanwhile. I come from a service organization and I have 80% of my population, which is software engineers. They are client facing, and the intent could be that we want to do all of this, but our design or the way the organization or the business is, we just can't make it happen. So that's the biggest reality of my life.
Can you talk about that just a little? So
sure.
Just expand.
So typical Infosys or TCS or a Satyam has got 80% of the workforce which is facing the client, or they need to be in front of the terminal 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day to handle. A service industry, typical. In a hotel industry, if you don't have the waiters here, or in a guard says I'm going to work from home, that's not a reality, right? So the intent is to make it happen, but the realities of the business are very different.
Right, excellent question. With your permission, I'm going to take it and hand it over. I think one of the things that is very important to realize when we embark on the whole, flexibility, customized workplace, etc., is that people don't recognize that not every job, not every role, and not every position is amenable to the same level of flexibility. So I think you're absolutely right. The guard saying, well, you know what, I'm going to work from home. That just completely defies what the role is all about. Or, pilot in the middle of the ship saying, guys, guess what? I'm kind of done. It's not going to happen, right? So I think one of the things that organizations who are starting on this journey need to be careful about, and this is exactly what Heather was saying, don't just take up a role and stick it in somewhere. You have to deconstruct jobs and figure out where is an opportunity for elements of flexibility and where it is not. It cannot be that any and every role will have the same level of flexibility available to it. And since Heather, you were alluding to it, I'll let you go first before I ask.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, right? And I know the earlier speaker mentioned that sometimes HR needs to say no, and I'm never afraid to do that. So I think there's definitely times and places where it won't work. But maybe there are some areas. So instead of allowing work from home, maybe you set up an area in your work site where it's like a relaxation room, or a library area or something like that. So even though, you're allowed those kind of opportunities for employees to take advantage of. So, always be looking for the solution, and then sometimes it's a compromise. But, I agree. We have customer service reps, and, they need to be in the office doing their job, and, so that's just kind of the core of what we're asked to do. So, absolutely.
Yeah, so while I agree with this, okay, I think one of the issues that I've been seeing is when I look at my management, right, my managers, they're not willing to think that this is possible. Okay, so for example, in a today you've got so much of technology that you can leverage to do work out of anywhere. Now, some roles obviously you have to be physically present. There's no option, right? But some roles, especially knowledge workers, okay, really doesn't mind where they're sitting and where they're doing their work from. Okay, but the mentality of the people who are running the project needs to change big time. That's where I face the biggest challenge. But once it changes, pretty much can be anywhere contributing, as long as your mentality is that you're task driven. You're saying that I need this deliverable by this day. I don't care how much you work through the day or whatever. That's your job. Then you're fine.
All right, great. There was a question right at the back. Yeah, you don't have a mic. Do you want a mic?
I think I do, because
okay. Can someone get this?
He has a mic.
Oh, okay. you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Hi, my name is Raghu. I'm from a company called as Active Technologies. We are a small size company. So what I strongly believe is, the employee engagement is the most essential part. At least with respect to our organization, where most of our people, about 80% of our employees, they work out of the customer location. Right? They do projects out of the customer location, and as a founder, I feel that people have to be taken care because you employ them, you don't see them, you don't talk to them, for a long time, and the engagement is kind of shattered. There's no engagement at all. So the question what I want to ask is the definition of engagement, right? Normally we do all those things what we just discussed, work from home and allowing them to work in a split hour, flexible hours, and all those things. But can this go beyond that, right? Does it make sense to take it beyond that, where involve the employees beyond office and work-related activities? Probably involve them in a social cause, take them around and identify certain activities like distributing books or doing a blood donation camp or certain other activities where you engage employees emotionally so that the engagement becomes better. And also, from an organization perspective, you get that credibility and the additional respect from an employee perspective. I somehow feel that it works, but I would like to take your opinion on that.
I think that's a good point, and I think you have some good ideas there. And I'm going to save it to the time when we talk about what more can be done. I want to focus on the question of what challenges are organizations facing as they are trying to get into the scheme of things. And did we get a mic back there yet? A working mic back there?
My question to what Nitin started with. The myopic view on work-life integration that most of the corporates have today versus a paradigm shift or transformation into integrating what life is at work. Just for example, many of us right now are tweeting, using Facebook at this very hour. A lot of employees do it in office. How open are we to that concept? How open are we to having family come in? How open are we to going to the areas where it is important for employees, like a social cause, just like as the gentleman said? I'm more interested in hearing from Heather and Nitin, both of you, what is the organization's perspective or what the organization should do to make that change happen?
Okay, so if I reframe that question in terms of the challenge, that even if we decide to go on this sphere, that there is an associated shift that needs to happen in the way these relationships are being handled, and you're finding that shift is not happening, even if people are, adopting the rhetoric of yes, we want to do this. All right. So how do you respond to that, Heather?
Yeah. So see, the way I look at it is that the mindset change is the most critical thing, and there are steps that you have to take to make it happen. So two things, right? One is as an organization, what's your operating model, especially from an HR perspective? Are you a policy-driven organization or are you really a people-driven organization? And to me, these are two different things. And let me give you an example. Okay? So, typically most organizations have this, once in a year employee satisfaction survey. Right? And to me, it's completely useless, okay? Because it's like a postmortem, yeah? And you typically don't get much out of it. Right? What are your employees really interested in, or what is it that worries them when they are working with you? Okay? Or what's it that they look forward to? There's certain changes that happen in the organization which could impact their lives. Right? Now these changes could be happening throughout the year. Okay? So isn't it a better idea to have a model whereby, let's say the organization is deciding to do something, maybe introduce some new change or some new, some new facility or whatever you call it. Okay? So you have a poll. Okay? It's like Facebook, and people can actually say like this guy. Okay? And let's say 70% of your organization or more than 70% says that they like it. Hey, you know what? Maybe people would like this to be implemented. So go and do it right at that time. Don't wait for a year-end poll to tell you what's going to happen. Now, what's happening because of this? You're slowly but surely changing the culture. Okay? And these kinds of measures, if you start taking, then the mindset of people also changes. Rather than kind of being very policy-driven or very sort of, very bureaucratic about it. You're becoming more open, more transparent, and more flexible.
I think that's an excellent point, because I'm going to take that a step further. And I think what Nitin is alluding to is something that very often in HR we forget to do. when we're trying to adopt new practices of any sort, we tend to assume that those practices are being implemented into the organization in isolation, and that while other things may not have succeeded, this one will. Because this seems to be this new age idea that really works, and guess what, it will make us the employer of choice and take us into the next century, etc. But in organizations where you find that the mindset around such initiatives is not there, or the culture is not there, I'm willing to take a bet that chances are that when it comes to other HR processes which are aligned towards such practices, which I like to call the next gen HR practices, you will probably find problems cropping up there as well. So I think that you raise an important perspective, which is when you're trying to implement such initiatives into your organization, you need to take a more of a systems perspective on what is the environment in which you are introducing a practice. And to the point that Heather said right at the start, not every environment is ready for that practice. That's something to keep in mind. Heather, you want to add something?
Yeah, I guess, you know, my thought on you're sort of creating this dynamic between policy versus people organized, but I think we have to remember why we have some of those policies. And that's because some of those underlying concepts weren't done well, right? Maybe we didn't have high integrity in place. Maybe we didn't have open communication. And I think, you know, we use those policies sometimes in that way. So I guess my thought is, you know, as we try to be open and flexible, of course, we have to remember that if we say yes to one employee, we may be disregarding all the other employees that work in that environment and what's the impact for them. So I guess I just raised that as, you know, we can't assume that all of those things are in place and that we have managers who are able to have those conversations. Because we know for managers, it's easier for them to just say yes and to want to always do whatever the employee is asking for the flexibility, for the benefit, whatever the case. But they're not keeping in mind, you know, everyone else and how they're also, you know, possibly to their detriment from these kind of things. So I guess I just sort of bring up the overall, I think of it much more as a cultural context of the entire organization.
Yeah, and I think that the phrase we want to use there for people who are trying to become successful at these practices is that there is a need to do what is known as system readiness check.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you have to see whether your system is even ready for this before you get into it. Because if it's not ready for it, you're going to hit more and more and more roadblocks. So like in the software terminology, it's called testing for bugs. So what are the bugs? And let's kind of get those bugs out before we release it to our customers, namely the employees. So do the bug testing and the system readiness test before you jump into it. I have a very enthusiastic person standing right there.
Thank you. My question or challenge is that we tried introducing something, a change in the way we normally work, where we started off saying, okay, we can have a different start time because of our operating model, we couldn't allow people to work from home or walk in late or things like that. So we gave them different start time. And when it got released, yes, everybody, clap of hands, everybody was happy. But within a week, I started getting, why aren't we flexible? Why don't we do this? And why don't we do the demands never end. And I almost wish I had not introduced it. Because it was like, oh God, give me more. And how do you tackle that? Sorry, go ahead. Because it is irritating when you are trying to do a positive thing. And, things take time. The organization may be in a particular situation or an operating model where you can't make changes. But employees are not ready to accept that. They just want change for the sake of it, and they want to show off, or they have peers who, say, oh, I go to work, when I like, and swipe out when I like, things like that. So managing that is my challenge.
Right, and that's a very good question. As far as wanting more and more and more, you should refer all your employees to Dr. Devdutt Patnaik, who would tell them what the problem is wanting more and more and more is. But it's a good question. So how would you suggest that she handle this kind of a thing where if I'm hearing you correctly, it's I give an inch and then you want a mile kind of a thing, and where does this thing really stop? And do I really want to do this, right? And if if you really want to do this, why do you want to do this? So, which is another way of a question that I have for you guys, is what's in it for employers, apart from this headaches of people asking for more and more and more, and then saying, but they got it, but we didn't get it. You can clap, I won't mind at all. So and so got it, but I didn't, and then how is it that the managers are allowed, but the juniors are not, and then I'm in my probation period, and you should have resigned. So it just sounds like a lot of work. I mean, I have enough work already, so what's in it for the employers? Why do it? How handle this?
I mean, I think what's in it is it's a lot about the employer brand, and I think it works really well for attracting. I think to your point, that's where it gets challenging once it's actually operationalized and reality hits. So I agree. I mean, I do think there are challenges to it. I personally would much rather work in an environment, like I said before, that is open and transparent and respectful, all those kind of things. And I think employees will choose whether they really need the flexibility, but I agree, because I don't think there is anywhere you can stop it. You keep customizing it for each person. Like I said, there are all the other employees that are watching that, and they're going to use all of that rationale, and that's where maybe you lose some of your positivity. So, yeah.
Okay. What's your take on it?
I think I like to call it taking a leap of faith. See, no change is going to be easy, right? And this is like a huge change. So even if you take a leap of faith, there will be initially, certain problems that you will face, but somewhere you're going to trust your people. Okay, and I can tell you one experience that we had. We had many experiences. One really stands out. Okay? So most, at least in the IT side, right, most companies have these draconian information security policies. You've heard of it? Okay, which means that your networks have to be secure. Okay, you cannot access the internet during your work hours. You cannot take data on a hard drive. The security will check your laptops. Blah blah blah. Now, all that is nothing more than just a simple or a very stupid reference, because someone has to do something, someone will do. Okay. So, point is that how much are you going to really go after it, right? So, one of the things that we did, for example, in the company, even we used to have that by the way, but we changed it. Said that, hey man, I'm just kind of opening up. So you guys do whatever. Okay. But we had, we used to monitor what was happening. We monitored the traffic, and surprise, okay, the amount of effort that my InfoSec team had to put initially when these policies were in place dramatically reduced, because they came back and said, hey Nitin, you know what, there's hardly any instance of people abusing it. Okay, so that's the leap of faith that I'm talking about, and if organizations, if they're willing to take it, I think they will be rewarded. Okay. So that's been my experience. Of course, different people have had it, but that's what I
Right, and I think another important, I'll get to it in a second. The other important point to remember in this story is that when you are launching these initiatives, it is very important to do what is known as expectation setting. If you don't do expectation setting, that's when it kind of gets out of hand. And if you have children, as I do, this is the first rule, is that you have to set boundaries and explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, if you were introducing something like coming late to work, whatever, and you got the employees together and you said, okay, we're going to try this is why we're trying it, and while the sky is the limit, that one day I have a dream like Martin Luther King that we'll never need to come to office and still get our work done, is a very far off day. For today, we're just going to try this and let us see how it works out for us. The fact is that even employees are looking for a workplace that is more conducive, and they are willing to work with you to make it happen. So I think one way to avoid this thing of employees beating down the door and saying, I want more, might be to just manage the expectations up front and say, guys, we're going to try to do this, but realize that Rome was not built in a day.